What's going on, everybody? It is the one and only Masked Q, as always. Well, as recently always, from Retro Q Gaming. And naturally, we are here with our suited up, masked up, suitable 63rd episode of our Quack experimental podcast. I have donned a little bit of a different garb this time. One that many people are probably more familiar with seeing the Irish in because, well, why not? So, rather than comment on how much we've got to talk about, if it's good or bad or a mixed bag, 7 out of 10, well, let's just get right into it, shall we? But before we do, I will say one thing. Wear some type of damn facial mask and or covering, people. God damn it. These people. Anyway, let's go. First up, we're going to talk lawsuits, or more specifically, one lawsuit. This one relates to Nintendo. Because, as we all know, there is the Joy-Con drift incident, where, because of subpar designs and subpar materials, Joy-Cons have been known to drift left with the stick. Of course, this makes games more difficult to play, and is a complete bullshit oversight that a company would do this. Although, chances are they knew about it, but they figured out that they could just release it anyway, and, well, fucking YOLO. So, interestingly enough, we know there is a class action lawsuit being taken against Nintendo, but more recently, Nintendo's president has actually come out and apologized for the whole situation involving the mass Joy-Con drift, which basically, in a way, confirms it was a significant widespread issue and affected a severe amount of users at that point. But, of course, they didn't fully accept blame because that would kind of screw them over. But because, lawsuit and all that too. But at the same time, he couldn't really say any more due to the ongoing lawsuit about it. So there's not much to talk about in there other than the fact that they did acknowledge it to be such a large, widespread problem that it was basically worth mentioning in that way. And, well, obviously it is to an extent since it's been class action lawsuit size. But that's it for that one. I just wanted to open up with a little bit of a in-your-face generic company who does bullshit like this. But moving on, we have another generic company who does bullshit similar to this. Crash 4. It's About Time, if you will, the full title. Now, there were supposedly hints at microtransactions and that the game would include some type of, I guess, depends on how it would have been potentially loot boxes, or with a game like that, realistically, it would probably be skins or something along those lines. But Toys for Bob, the developer, have come out and officially made an announcement to clear things up, and, well, a bit of positive PR. So Crash 4, according to Toys for Bob, will have no microtransactions at launch. Now, the totally tubular DLC, the bonus pack, will also be included with all digital copies of the games, not just pre-orders. Now, this is where this gets a little bit interesting, because while they have made this announcement, it is very, very important to note that Crash Team Racing devs said the same thing. Pre-launch. And guess what got added post-launch? That's right. Microtransactions. And it's not just limited to them. There are more developers, more publishers, more everything who have done things like this. Polyphony Digital. That's right, Gran Turismo. There was a big push about that whole thing where, yep, our game will contain no microtransactions at launch, so don't worry about any of that stuff. Then, of course, the game launches and they add them later and continue adding them and add more and more of them as time goes by. So, I will chalk this one up to a hesitant but possible W. Now, this next topic, I don't want to harp on too much because I've already made an individual video about it earlier this week in much more detail, but it's important enough to at least touch on it right here now. So, because of what was originally 2K Games and NBA 2K21, and then eventually became more and more publishers and developers kind of agreeing with it and leaning in the same direction, we may be in for a price increase in games when it comes to next generation consoles. So basically, next gen versions of games may cost more. And this would pretty much be the first, if it is widely and industry level adopted, This will be the first standard increase, if you will, from roughly 2005, which is when the 7th generation launched with the Xbox 360. Now, the main reason when you look at this, or the main comparison version, is the PS4 and Xbox One editions are €60, and the PS5 and Xbox Series L versions are €70. Now, they have said, at least they comment in the case of 2K, they've commented that they believe in the value and the replayability and the lifespan of the game, coupled with all of the extra work that they had to put in to do the improvements and take advantage of next gen and stuff. And this only $10, the meager $10 as they call it, won't go into a long, even long term, won't recoup all these losses, at least to enough. That's basically their way of saying, oh well, feel bad for us, we have to try and make even more money and ignore our $2 billion a year in microtransactions, because, well, that's what they do. But this one in particular, this comment and this topic, it's not so much about 2K in this specific game. It's more so about the fact that we could be looking at, well, console users could be looking at an increase in price in next generation games. Be it from first party stuff, who knows if Sony are going to charge more for their own games. It could be just third party stuff as well. For all we know, third party companies could just adopt all of this and every single one of them could just come out and be more expensive. It's not a perfect comparison and a perfect situation, because I'm always very confused when it comes to certain things. For example, at least, well, certain things when it comes to pricing and whatnot, specifically related to US prices and dollars and all that. So what I'm led to believe is that when a game is advertised and launched and announced at $60, that's $60 excluding tax. So you would walk into GameStop and you would pay you would expect to see this game that releases at $60, and then you would pay your tax on top of it. So you might be paying $66 or $69 or $70 or something like that. It's all a very, I guess you could say, a convoluted one, because I live in Europe, so we obviously have working brains over here, so all prices are displayed with tax included. So when I look at the price of a game, that is the price I am paying, because I am not a fucking idiot, and the country is not run by fucking idiots. Well, it is, but lesser fucking idiots. But it also comes back to a couple of other things. Now, I'm not going to defend a price increase. I just want to point something out in the meantime, is that as money has devalued through inflation over time, there was a time when games were technically more expensive due to inflation and whatnot as well. I have games from my Super Nintendo with the price sticker still on them. I have games that have £60, £70 on there, and those were Irish pounds before we used the euro. So when you convert it over, let alone adjust for inflation, these games were probably close to €100. Now, you could also make the argument, how much of a game do you get out of it? This is kind of irrelevant, if you will. It's more so because some of these companies and shills and fake-ass YouTubers and whoever it is, the corporate bootlickers basically, one of their big arguments is, oh, games are longer and more feature-filled now than ever. If you spend €75 on a game nowadays, you can expect to get €80 out of it. Maybe that game should be 100 because it's so much value and all. That's just a bunch of shillery and corporate bootlicking bullshit. Versus some of these older games. Donkey Kong Country, for example, comes to mind. I still have that with my price sticker still on it. And you can probably finish Donkey Kong Country in maybe 2 hours, 3 hours, depending on how good you are at the game. And that's literally it. Sure, it has replay value, but in just single playthrough usage versus the time it came out and the value and inflation and whatnot as a comparison. Of course, I'm not using that to defend that potential price increase. In fact, I'm completely against a potential price increase at all. Companies should be vying. They are lucky for us to even give them $60, let alone $70 for a game. So they should be lucky that they have a product appealing enough to us, willing to part with 60 of your whatever dollary dues, rupees, euro, whatever the fuck it is, depending on wherever the fuck you live. So you get the idea anyway as well. I just do want to point that out because I do think that is something that is unfairly left out. But at the same time, I completely hate the idea of a price increase. Now, having said all that as well, practically none of this will apply to me because I will be buying extremely few next generational console games. I will still be buying games on PC where everything is cheaper as a standard from its digital storefront because, well, less licensing fees and all that stuff too. And, of course, there is the option for the grey market. And hell, just because I'm in the suit, I'm in the appropriate armor, and I'm in the what do we call it, the uniform that would allow me access to it. Well, if I really wanted, there's even the option to sail the high seas. But quickly moving along, we can touch on some other weirdness, if you will, that we don't exactly know how to feel about it just yet because it could still go either way. We have Fallout-related news. Unfortunately, it's not a Fallout 3 Anniversary Edition or Special Edition. It's not a Fallout New Vegas version of the same thing. Hell, it's not even an announcement of Fallout 5 or some major big proper Fallout spin-off. Not crappy Fallout 76 style, but in the vein of the old original style. No. It is the announcement of a Fallout TV show. Now, this one is going to be from Amazon Studios, which we can all assume means it's just going to be Prime exclusive, Prime Video exclusive, until 5 minutes after it launches when it hits every torrent site out there. But key people have been announced in relation to this. More so executive producers, things like that, what other stuff they've worked with and the studios they've been with. We have pretty much no details, not even a release date, not even an estimated release date, not a cast, not a setting, not anything like this. But all we have at the moment is the announcement that Jonathan Nolan, who is one of the producers of Westworld, and Lisa Joy from Kilter Films are going to be heavily involved in this. Supposedly they'll be working alongside Todd Howard and all as well to get the setting and the story and the yada yada yada, the plot points, the details, the characters, work all that stuff out. Don't know how it's going to go. I have heard very mixed things in relating to Amazon specific, Amazon created TV shows. I've always heard they've had this weird look and feel and style and vibe about them. So let's hope it doesn't. I'm going in optimistic. Very, very on a scale of 1 to 100, if 10 or if 9 is okay, this is going to be shit, and 10 is the bare minimum level of not going to be shit, and then everything above it is optimism, I'm going in on a 10. So we'll see how it goes. There's plenty of time for it to go really, really well, or really, really poorly. Now, next up, there's some bullshit we have to address here because, well, it's some real top-tier fuckery that really just shines a negative light on, unfortunately, people in the gaming community. But anyway, we're going to talk a little bit about Laura Bailey, aka Laura Bailey, because, well, she Bay. So, if you don't know, Laura Bailey is a voice actress. She most recently voices Abby in The Last of Us Part 2. Now, I'm going to generally stay away from the whole situation in relation to the game, the details, the quality, etc., etc. I will briefly touch on it in pretty much one sentence now in a little bit. But she has lately been getting some massive amounts of online hate. Now, typically, I wouldn't bother talking about this, but the fact is it's gaming related and it's voice actor related, which is something else I'm into as well, so it crosses over. Now, like I said, she's been getting a massive amount of online hate recently. She's been getting death threats, she's been getting threats of violence against her, her family, her kid, she's been getting rape threats, all this stuff, all because she voices a character. She voices Abby. Now, first off, I'm just going to say, grow the fuck up, people. Just grow the fuck up. But I will say this, okay? Despite me hating the game, hating the characters, hating the writing, and I will be completely honest, I do believe that it is not one of Laura Bailey's finer performances. But again, she can only do so much with the quality and the material provided to her. Even despite how bad all of that is, why would anyone be mad at her for this? She's not Abby. She didn't write Abby. She didn't come up with the character, the ideas, the dialogue. She didn't do any of that for Abby. She's literally reading the words, conveying them, the emotions, the everything, the inflections, the implications, everything about them. She's just doing the lines, the words. It's not like she believes Abby. It's not like she is Abby. It's not like she lives Abby. It's not like any of that. Grow the fuck up, people. It really shows that fanboys are the worst of everything. I mean, I have coherently explained multiple different times why I believe The Last of Us Part 2 to be awful in practically every single way. I'm not going to get into it here. I've done it multiple times already. But clearly, I can intelligently convey these reasons why I believe this. Instead of just going, big keyboard, hate Laura Bailey. It's just so stupid. Why would someone even do that? It makes no sense. But again, these are illogical, idiotic fanboys. But the thing that makes this situation even worse and even more bizarre, which kind of doesn't surprise me given how brain damaged many of these people are in relation to liking The Last of Us Part 2. Or not, I'm not going to say you have to be brain damaged to like it, but the fact that they cannot mentally handle the fact that someone could not like this, or, you know, people on the opposite end of the spectrum of that, is that many of these people who are attacking Laura Bailey are actually people who defend the game 24/7. There are people out there with Twitter accounts who will send her hate, but spend the other 23 hours and 55 minutes in a day talking about how amazing the game is, the characters are, the story, the progression, the logic. It baffles the mind. Absolutely baffles the mind. Leave her alone, people, or you're gonna have to fucking deal with me. Put it that way. But speaking of things that get hate out there, well, this next one is pretty much legitimately deserved. Because, well, we can go and laugh at some fake-ass, crap-ass, clickbait-ass, booty-ass journalists because of their games journalism. So, we're going to talk about some Nintendo Mobile. Now, you might remember that there was allegedly, supposedly, an article put out recently based on interviews and conversations through the likes of investor meetings and all as well, where it had alleged that Nintendo was going to significantly pull back their mobile focus and their game-related stuff through their apps and all for iOS and Android, and that they would just be mainly focusing on console games, mainly to do with the success and quality of Animal Crossing at the time and the runaway success. Well, it turns out that ain't it, Chief, because mobile is still going to be a huge, significant part of Nintendo's plan going forward, according to the 80th Annual General Meeting of Shareholders. So, what can I say? You will be looking forward, or you will be seeing, many more high-profile Nintendo IPs using app games on iOS and Android devices. And we can all go and laugh at these shitty-ass game journalists. So if they even should be called, because they are being crap. They are being clickbaity. They are rushing everything out there. They are not even retracting anything. They are finding all sorts of fake bullshit. Because that is what they do. But on a positive note, moving away from Nintendo, we have Persona 5. Specifically, Persona 5, the animation. The anime, which pretty much condensed the masterpiece, amazing modern game, one of the greatest JRPGs of all time, down into 26 episodes. Don't ask me how they're going to do that. But anyway, more importantly, this anime that came out about 2 years ago has now been officially announced for a Western release in September 29th of 2020. Now, currently, it's only going to be offered as a giant Blu-ray box of the entire series. It's going to include an English dub for the very first time, using the same voice actors and everything from the game. It is going to have, that's obviously a very, very big one, by the way. Let me give you an example why I am typically a fan of subs more than dubs. The fact that I played the game first, I have all this connection with these characters and all this time and experience with them, with their English voices. This is how these characters are, and this is how these characters sound to me. So to not be able to hear them like that again would be extremely, extremely jarring. So that is very, very important in relation to big games like, say, Persona 4, anime, Persona 5, stuff like that. Someone's going to go down and do the whole, Troy Baker, Matthew Mercer, Persona 4 anime thing now in a minute. But hell, I'm way ahead of you. I've already called you out on it, so don't even bother. Or, well, it's up to you. But anyway, also, 6 discs, 26 episodes, plus 2 bonus episodes as well, and 6 art cards. Now, this was only announced last night. So it is still fresh. And of course, it doesn't release for a few more months, so there is plenty of time for more details to come out and things to change. Now, in the US, it's going to be handled and distributed by Aniplex of America, which gives you an idea about where I'm going next with this part of the conversation. It's going to be $300 for this 6-disc, 6 art card, 26 episode plus 2 bonus episode box set. It's going to be $300. And that's the limited time only price. It's down from $400 if you pre-order it. You get it for the $300. And on top of all of that, if you didn't already know, Persona 5 the animation is created and animated by A1. Now, A1 has been widely criticized for years for the quality of their animation, because it's pretty damn poor in so many things, in so many ways that they do it. So that's a huge, jarring negative from it there too. Now, I'm assuming that the EU will also get this, but probably not. Well, it's 99% sure that EU will get the Persona 5 anime, but I have a feeling that we're not going to get it in the same fashion that this is. I have a feeling that, like the majority of anime out there, when it releases and it's new and it's current, will be much better value. Sure, it might come out in early 2021 instead of coming out in September 29th of 2020 like it is in America, but I have a feeling that we will get this in a volumed release, if you will. And of course, it's probably going to be significantly cheaper, like usual. I have a feeling we will get this in 3 different separate volumes. Like, we'll get volume 1, which will be 2 discs, and it'll be 10 episodes, and then we'll get volume 2, which will be 2 discs and 10 episodes. Then we'll get volume 3, which will be the last 6 episodes, the 2 bonus and whatever extra features and all in there too. And it'll probably be 26 or 30 euro or something along those lines. Now, the main reason I bring this up and it's so important to me is because I would love to support more Persona, pretty much everything, especially Persona 5 related stuff as well. But there is a line, and this is crossed the line at this point. It's a bit too much as well. It's pretty much how it's going to be overall when you think about it, and condensed from 100 plus hours of Persona 5 condensed down into, I think it's quoted at 8.5 hours or 8 hours 80 minutes or something along, I can't remember, maybe 880 minutes, something along those lines. But it's significantly condensed down, so it is questionable how they're going to handle it and all. I realize it's been out and fan subbed in from Japan for, well, literally years at this point now, but we'll see. But this also does harp back to something that happened about 15-ish years ago. Now, I don't know how many of you were into anime or know the story of it back then, but anime in the West, be it Europe and the US, hell, even North America, we'll go with Canada and all too, it almost completely died around the mid-2000s. The early 2000s, mid-2000s, late 2000s, basically 2000 to 2010. It almost completely died out. And the main reason for that is that it was kind of when anime was getting popular again and was kind of exploding a little bit. And they were trying to rush to do everything and get everything out there and get everything dubbed, get everything released and all as well. And because of so many different factors involved, as well as a little bit of profit margin greed and all too, they were making anime so ridiculously expensive that it was prohibitive for most people, to an extent, because you would nowadays, if you buy, let's say, a Blu-ray set or something like that, you might get 20 episodes, or you might get 13 or 14 episodes or something like that, and you might pay 40 euros, something like that for it. Considering that it's all Blu-ray, high-quality anime, maybe some extra bonus features and all as well. But just looking at the price versus the amount of episodes and all you get in there is pretty good value by comparison. Because back then, for the same kind of money, you would pay 26, 30, 36, 40 euro, and you would get a one-disc DVD volume with 3 or 4 episodes on it. And that almost killed anime completely. There was an almost immeasurable surge in anime piracy at the time, because you would need to buy 26 episodes, which means you would have to buy 12 volumes at 30 euro a piece. You were paying more than, what's this, 300 plus euro for a single series of an anime. It was bonkers, and it almost completely killed anime in the West entirely. And I've heard many voice actors speak at conventions about this as well, and how it affected them and what they were doing, and how they had to kind of change their focus on what they were doing, because they were saying that ever since, along the lines of that, you pretty much can't survive only being an anime voice actor. Unless you're extremely high profile and you're working on different projects every single day, you pretty much need to diversify. Apparently games pay a lot more for voice acting in games and all as well, so you do need to sprinkle a lot of that stuff in. You need to sprinkle in voiceover work for like public service announcements or TV ads and stuff like that. Apparently almost every other voice gig pays significantly better than anime, so that is definitely something that's important to note. But this, to me, as someone who's lived through that whole situation and survived it, if you will, and seen it bounce back to where it is now. Obviously, anime is very, very mainstream now and much more accepted and significant. But then you see stuff like this happen, and it makes you wonder, because obviously I'm not American, so I have heard a lot of situations where Aniplex of the US has done stuff like this. Like, oh, well, you know, a 12 episode thing with no way that everyone's been asking for, with no extra features or bonuses or anything. $150, baby. So hopefully we don't get to that kind of level and that kind of situation yet again. Although Europe is considerably better for it usually, but, well, reasons. But having said all that, we can round off here with our best little favorite segment that everyone is dying for every single week. Cue what's going on, what's up, what's going down, what's the 411, what's going on, what are you playing? Well, one thing I forgot to add about a week or two ago anyways, I actually finished the Borderlands 3 DLC, the third DLC, the cowboy one, what was it called, Blood, Money, Blood and Sand, whatever, I can't even remember the name of it at this point. It seems like so far ago, but I finished it. It was okay anyway. There's some good stuff in it, of course, but it felt, I don't want to say it felt a little bit phoned in. It felt like it didn't balance properly, since Borderlands does a lot of scaling to your level and all as well, and it's never really hard per se. This one just felt exceptionally easy. I have to say though, I will admit that my guns are significantly overpowered, if you will. I don't know how I managed to get such, well, I guess most of them are legendary, so that kind of says it all, but most of them are just so OP that everything became easy. I was on the appropriate difficulty and all as well, and everything was scaled to me, and I was killing bosses in 4 hits. It was it was a bit ridiculous, really, but it was fun overall anyway. Some good stuff, some good jokes and all in there too, and naturally more of my boy Zane is always a good old thing. Speaking of which, whales, bastards of the sea, can't stand them, can't trust anything but a blowhole. But anyway, we can move along, because we have Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, and Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition is done. That's right, it took me 50 plus hours, but it is done. That third last boss and that last boss, now they are a shower of bastards, but overall everything else was a damn easy game. I didn't do all of the extra side content. I did a significant amount of it, but there is a huge amount in there too. So I would say I probably got 80, maybe 90% of the side quests and all done, but It's still a great game despite looking like shit because it runs at 720p at its best and standard definition a lot of the time. It is a bit of a blurry mess all the time. Literally all the time. 100% of the time. Playing it on a 1080p monitor, it is literally blurry all the time, which is very, very disappointing. Not to mention the performance and all too. But we got a little bit of extra to move it away and change it up and mix it up completely. Because even though Xenoblade Chronicles is a remaster of a Wii game, well, we went back and we hit up the Wii with Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Wii. And of course, I went through the whole thing. It's all completely done. A good, usual fun, 60 FPS. As always, some great music, some great gameplay and all. And I can't really say much about it in that way. It's pretty much what you know and expect with a lot of the 2D Donkey Kong games. They're damn fun. Sure, they'll never be Donkey Kong Country 1, 2, and 3. But, hell, it's still a damn decent time. I moved on to Heavy Rain on PC after that, ever since it finally launched on Steam and I could legitimately buy it at long last. However, I found myself kind of rushing it after I got about halfway through the game. Maybe a little bit, maybe about 3/4 of the way through the game. I found myself just kind of phoning it in and rushing it. And I said it's probably just in my best interest to stop if I'm not really focused and just kind of bored with it for playing it for the like 600th time at this point. It's probably just best to let it go and let it skip, and well, we'll worry about that later. But that does bring me to our next one that we want to talk about, which is our final little bit that we can put in here too. Because now that Heavy Rain is on hold, now that the rain has currently subsided, I can move on to my next game that I had planned, which is PVM, which is using the Wii to play GameCube. We're talking Metroid Prime, baby. That's right. Metroid Prime, a game I never finished back in the day because it wasn't my own copy. And I can't remember if I got stuck or if I got kind of bored with it or something else came out or whatever it is. But I do remember that I just ended up giving it back to my friend. He didn't ask for it back. I just gave it back to him for some whatever reason. So Metroid Prime is up next. Don't know how I'm going to feel about it after I finish it. If I'm going to want to jump straight into Echoes number 2 and then God knows, for some crazy reason, maybe I want to jump straight into Corruption number 3 on the Wii. But there might be some other stuff in the meantime. But the big one now is Metroid Prime. But in the meantime, that is it for our 63rd episode of our Quack Experimental Podcast. Provided, of course, to you by Safe Masked Q here, baby. Because that is what we do. Of course, as always, feel free to hit up the comment section below. Thoughts, feelings, questions, butthurt, opinions, salt, whatever it is. Because that is what that is there for. And, you know, I even remember putting in a little bit of a dig about some... Oh, you know, the Matthew Mercer, Troy Baker thing about Persona 4 anime. So, yeah, feel free to be cut off the legs because I'm already way, way heady in that regard. But anyway, we will see everyone next week, next time, next whenever it is. So of course, as always, hit the appropriate button to let me know how I did on the video, and while you're at it, why not head on over, hit the subscribe button, and even ring the little notification bell so you can be one of the first people when these amazing, glorious, high quality, mask friendly, safe episodes is uploaded onto our good little YouTube channel next weekend, or every weekend for that matter. But in the meantime, stay safe, wear a fucking mask, and remember, winners don't play switchboards.